If you're shooting with the Sony FX3 and want a cinematic image straight out of the camera without shooting log and spending time color grading your footage, S-Cinetone is one of the best options you have. I previously made an S-Cinetone setup guide for the Sony FX30, and I didn't use exactly the same settings on Sony FX3. Today I'll show you my exact Sony FX3 S-Cinetone setup, what I changed, what I leave unchanged, and why. Let's jump straight into the settings. Let's start with picture profile. I'm using picture profile 11 as the starting point, with both gamma and color mode set to S-Cinetone. Now, the important thing here is that I'm not trying to completely redesign Sony S-Cinetone look. The whole reason I used S-Cinetone is because I really like the color science and tone response straight out of the camera. So I'm only making a few targeted adjustments. Starting with the black level, I leave this at 0. I don't recommend crushing the blacks here, just to make the image look more cinematic. Keeping black level at 0 gives me more natural starting point and preserves more flexibility in the shadows. Next is the black gamma. I keep the range at middle and the level at 0. Again, I'm intentionally leaving the blacks as Cinetone tone response along rather than trying to force additional contrast into the picture profile. Now let's move to the knee. Here I switch from auto to manual. My point is to set 105% with slope at 0. The idea here is to keep the knee point very high so it doesn't unnecessarily affect most of the normal tonal range. I want a Cinetone to maintain its natural highlight rendering while keeping the adjustment counterpart towards the very top end of the signal. Next, color mode stays on a Cinetone, and this one is two places where I actually increase something. I set saturation to +2. A Cinetone already has the very good color straight out of the camera, but for my preference, +2 a little more color without making it look artificially saturated. Remember, the whole objective of this setup is to produce footage that's already very close to a finished image without requiring a full color grade. Color pace stays at 0. And here's something important. I also leave every individual color depth adjustment at 0. Red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. If you watched my Sony FX30 S-Cinetone setup, you'll notice that this is one of the areas where my settings are different. On the Sony FX30, I made some individual color depth adjustment. With the Sony FX3, after testing the image, I prefer leaving those channels natural and letting the camera native S-Cinetone color rendering to do the work. And finally, we get to detail. I set detail to -5. This is an important adjustment because I don't want the image to have the overly sharp digital appearance. Reducing detail gives the skin fine textures and edges a more natural look, while -5 still retains enough apparent detail for sharp 4K image. The following footage was shot on Sony FX3 in Dublin, Ireland using the exact S-Cinetone settings I just showed you, with no color grading applied. Inside the detail adjustment menu, I leave the additional parameters essentially at their default. Mode on auto, VH balance at 0, W balance at type 3, limit at 7, crispness at 0, and highlight detail at 0. I am deliberately not overcompensating this section. The main adjustment I want here is simply to overall detail, I leave it at -5. And that's basically it. The result is still unmarkably Sony S-Cinetone. I'm just making a few small adjustments to get the image close to the look I want straight out of the camera. That's the final result, Sony FX3 S-Cinetone using the exact setting I showed you in this video, with no color grading applied. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.